Pete Buttigieg, Transportation Secretary. He is President Biden's best spokesperson. And I think this guy should be on every network, every day, just talking about Biden's policies. I want you to take a listen to this, and then we'll give a slight analysis at the end. Check this out. We'll take it on the other side.
He'll be 81 on Election Day in 2024. Republicans such as Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley are already seeming to make a generational argument. You made a similar generational argument when you were running against Joe Biden for president yourself. Are you worried that it could work in 2024?
Generational arguments can be powerful. As you said, I've used them myself. The most powerful argument of all is results. And you can't argue, at least I would say, you can't argue with a straight face, that it isn't a good thing that we have had 12 million jobs created under this president. And by the way, a lot of the jobs are in manufacturing. As somebody who grew up in the industrial Midwest, it's been so moving to see hundreds of thousands of good-paying manufacturing jobs being created, including in rural areas, small towns, and places like Tennessee and Louisiana and Georgia and Indiana, the kind of growth that benefits the entire American people. And I think when you look at that, when you look at what America was up against when President Biden took office and what has been delivered, again, just in these first 2 years of this administration, let alone what's possible as we actually start entering more and more, for example, of the construction phase on the infrastructure law, I think those results are going to continue to accumulate. And people will toss whatever argument they can into the mix that they think is going to benefit them the most. But at the end of the day, you can't argue with the extraordinary accomplishments, more than almost any other modern president that President Biden has achieved, again, under the toughest of circumstances.
This is why Pete Buttigieg is effective. Notice what Jake Tapper did. In the preamble, Jake Tapper made sure to remind Pete Buttigieg that he once used ageism against President Biden. In fact, he spoke about generational change. That is, Pete Buttigieg, just like many of the new entries or the people who are expected to enter the Republican race, are talking about generational change, etc., which would hit Biden pretty hard, right? Because he's going to be 81, I think, if he's reelected. Now, watch what Pete Buttigieg did. What he did was he first said, generational change is in fact important. But you know what beats generational change? Effective leadership, successful accomplishments that help the American people going forward, more so than just somebody being young. But the second thing he did is how he pivoted. He pivoted from the ageism question, the question of age, and then immediately moved into the successes of the administration. But he didn't only do it as the successes of the administration, but the localized successes of the administration. In other words, how it affects Indiana, how it affects Tennessee, how it affects Georgia, how it affects Michigan, how it affects all these areas where he knows that the Republicans are going to go in and try to create a narrative not only on ageism, but on the success of the Biden administration. So he brought that immediately. These are where these items are running. And then he didn't make it a one-stop issue. In other words, it's not we passed the law, we got the spoils, and it's over, next item. He made it clear that all these issues all these policies that were changed in this administration are going to be in effect over time. So a lot of them are coming to fruition this year. A lot of them will be coming to the fruition next year, so that we will have an ongoing, a constant feeding of these policies. Very effectively said, without any major emotions, just in a manner that somebody drinking a cup of coffee will say, oh, yeah, that's right. When somebody goes into the voting booth and they have a new guy to vote for, and maybe this older guy that, he's kind of older. Well, you know what? We know what we got. Now, after all that is said, after all that is said, I think it's incumbent on Democrats to have a backstop. It's incumbent because, after all, the guy is going to be 81 if he gets reelected. And the backstop should be Biden has to be a part of watching where he's at from a health standpoint and be given cues, not necessarily publicly, but internally, for someone who can effectively take on the mantra to win. Now, you guys know where I come from. I want somebody much more progressive than President Biden. But again, any progressive coming into the fold has to pre-sale. We know most Americans are progressives, but the way the narrative goes, they are fearful of whenever a real progressives come into the fold. It is incumbent on progressives to sell their message in a palatable form to the vast majority of Americans that tie it into what they want, because we know what progressives are selling is exactly what Americans say they want to buy. Great job by Pete Buttigieg, best spokesman in the administration. 10 out of 10 this morning. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.